The finance bill is bringing our money wounds to our attention. And this finance bill has woken us up, or has become the vehicle or the instrument through which we are awakening to our financial issues. And now we are taking back power. It's about us as a people, not us as a particular community or a tribe. When you're dealing with a lot of anger, that means you have a lot of excess mass energy, which is fiery, passionate. It can destroy something, but what you want it to destroy, you want it to destroy something on the external. Okay. You don't want to turn it in within, because then you're destroying yourself, you're destroying the society. Yeah. But in 2024, I'm so proud to see that now we are externalizing mass. Good. We are not going after each other. We are going after the source.
Our ancestors angry at our president or the leadership of this country?
Yes, they are not happy with what's happening currently. They're not happy with the leadership. That's for sure. But even so, the ancestors are not coming to sabotage. They want the best. They want us to grow into a state where we can stand on our own. Age of Aquarius is suddenly you're romanticizing suffering. That's what you'll be told. What do you mean? Must I sacrifice myself for humanity? Why can't humanity do its work and raise its own consciousness one by one? Why can't humanity carry its own cross? Why does it have to rely on one individual to carry their burdens? So Aquarius will push back and say, but you also have divinity within you. Why are you expecting me to lead you towards your own journey?
A very good morning to you and a warm welcome to LNS Rebuilding Restoration Series. My name is Lynn Ngugi. It's no secret I am for Reject Finance Bill 2024. But then I have to say something. All through the year, we've been saying this thing on camera and off camera. Something is really happening in our country and we don't even understand. And I remember we were sitting with my friends and we were like, una feel hii energy yenye yuko. Something is just going on na hata hatujui what exactly it is. And then it got me thinking, you know, what even is our relationship when it comes to matters as spiritual and politics? Where do we even, like, what exactly is happening? Why are we feeling the way we are feeling? Where did this thing start? Did we just wake up and then as a country we felt the need to have our voices heard? Or is this something people have just been feeling and now is the perfect opportunity to be able to let what they've been feeling out? And I found someone I've manifested having on this show, and I honestly did not believe when she was like, yes, Lynn, I would love to come to talk to people about what's going on. She is incredible. I follow her show. Every time I see an interview out there, I follow her posts. She's always telling us, read this, do that, explaining things to us. And I know a lot of you might have seen her on a couple of interviews and also on her social media platforms. And I hope by the time we finish with this conversation, we can also be able to understand where we are spiritually and why are the things that are happening in our country happening right now. Is this just a coincidence or is this something that was meant to happen? I'm about to let her introduce herself and walk us through today's conversation. But before I do that, I mean, look at us, almost hitting 1 million subscribers. Guys, I am totally grateful to you for just showing up and just subscribing and loving our work. It's been a journey and you guys have been active participants of our show. I appreciate you. So continue supporting us even as we amplify issues that are affecting our country, even as we rebuild, because we cannot just wait and sit on the fence and see our country ikienda chini. We have to be able to use our voice. So shukran sana. Please subscribe. It goes a long way into making sure that people get to watch our shows, and also it goes a long way into making sure YouTube continues recommending our work. So I don't take you guys for granted. Shukran sana. And now without further ado, please allow me to let my guest today introduce herself. Good morning.
Good morning, Lynn.
I dear. How are
Hi,
you?
I'm well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me as well on the show.
Yes.
I feel very honored and humbled
Yeah.
to just share. This is a great time to have these conversations. So just to introduce myself, my name is Mildred Awino. I'm a spiritual practitioner. I'm a spiritual advisor. I specifically work through divination and also the stargazers, the wise men of old. We are standing on the shoulders of giants and using that information to bring it to people and contextualize it and try to explain to them the cycles and what is happening, what is trying to unfold through all these events, all these world events that are happening. I've done this work this is my 4th year. Doing this kind of work, and I can say through my work that I've been able to observe certain cycles, certain patterns, certain prophecies from the ancestors coming true or on their way to coming true. So I'm very honored to share my takeaways with your audience, with the nation, and hopefully it's going to add value and to help people contextualize and to also calm them down a little bit, because now they'll be able to see there is a pattern, there is design, and there is a plan towards where we are going.
You know, and honestly, as I said when I was introducing the show, I'm so happy to just have you. And you say, you know, one of the things I've followed you long enough to know that you are not scared of saying what you think, right? But even before we get on what is happening in our country and even the origin of how we are feeling right now, some people are really angry. And when I tell you angry, we went for the demos. I've not missed any of that. I have no apologies to make, because I believe that we have to actively participate in what is happening in our country. But even as I'm watching, I can see the anger in some people. I can see how disappointed, devastated people are, right? But before we get into why we are feeling the way we are feeling, were you scared at some point of coming out? Because yours tends to be, sometimes people might confuse it between a battle of spiritualism and religion, you know, and this whole Christianity. Were you scared of airing your views to the public?
Oh, for sure, for sure. And I usually say that as a spiritual practitioner, I believe I speak for many when I say that a lot of us have or still have what we call persecution wounds. And these come from like a long way, like centuries back, right? Because if you understand just how generational traumas work, where certain practitioners, especially of African religions or African belief systems, are kind of erased, or they are dismissed or maligned, and their intentions are kind of misconstrued or demonized. And another thing is our source. We're usually told that our sources are demonic to begin with, so nobody wants to listen to what we have to say. Whereas we are more or less the spokespeople or the voices of the ancestors, the voices that are lost, the voices that have been lost for a century now, or over a century. And I would say that the voices that you're hearing now, the voices of anger, these are not just the voices of the youth. These are voices of the very old people who have been stifled for years and years and years. So yes, I did feel very anxious or a bit afraid of coming out, at least with let's say you've probably not seen me on a podcast or with my own podcast or with my own YouTube channel, probably because of that. So I decided to take a different approach, even as I was working on that persecution wound, which is to honestly do the work, to honestly bring to society what I feel is the result of my investigations, the result of my spirituality. These are the messages that I feel are happening. These are the undercurrents that we can expect. And I can say that from 2020, the ancestors have been faithful. I believe my path has been one of kusema na kutenda, where people have had to actually see what I'm talking about happening, for them to then come to the table and start taking me seriously. Because when I started, there are people who would come to the comments and tell me, you're crazy, this is demonic, what are you talking about? I don't think this is going to happen. But then the thing that I'm talking about happens. And then you go back to respond to the person and you find, oh, there's no comment anymore. So it took a lot of time. It took a lot of proving that what we are talking about is actually a fact and that it will happen. So I can say that between 2020 and 2024, there has been a leap, I can call it. It's like a leap in consciousness, a kind of enlightenment era, which I feel welcome. I feel I can now come out. I feel safer in this environment because people are more open to what else can help us, because religion has been with us for over a century right now. And my original point about religion was, yes, it has its validity, but within the culture that it sprang up within. Like the Bible, the Old Testament, that really speaks to Hebrew culture. In an African culture, every culture has certain nuances, certain things that make them unique. Every culture has certain problems that have very specific solutions to them or specific approaches. Now, as Africans, my point is there will come a point you will have a very uniquely African problem. How are you going to solve it? You're not going to find the solution in the Bible. What are you going to do? You will need some kind of African consciousness or African solution or African kind of thinking to apply to that solution that works for Africans. Because that's the other thing. It has to spring from within ourselves. So I believe this is the time. And as I sit here, Lynn, I feel like I'm sitting here with all these practitioners that did not have a voice, all these practitioners that were maligned, all these practitioners that had something to say, but in some ways they were not able to bring it forward to the people. So I feel this is in some ways a cosine, being cosigned by the ancestors of our people, that it is time for us to now bring back the African wisdom. And usually, sometimes, as even the Christians know that God will sometimes use an imperfect vessel. And they will speak, God will sometimes speak through your children. And even Jesus said this, that I thank you, Father. It's actually a prayer. Thank you, Father, that you have hidden these things from the wise and revealed them to young children. So this is probably what is happening now. So we need to also realize that sometimes the word of wisdom will come from a younger person, and we have to recognize when a young person is speaking wisdom, right?
All right. And another thing, so before we get into that, when you say you are a spiritual practitioner, what does that mean? And where do you draw the line between you being a spiritual practitioner, a Christian, or a religious person?
Oh my, I'm definitely on the spiritual side of things. Yes. And I'm actively researching African traditional religions. So I'm not just looking at my own cultural belief systems. I'm not just looking at other communities' belief systems. I'm looking at the continent. I'm looking at the diaspora. And I'm finding a lot of affinity, a lot of similarities. And I'm also looking at religion, at Christianity, Buddhism, Islam. And I'm also seeing some affinities here and there. So I can say that at this point, I'm able to sit down with a practitioner of any religion and find some common ground, because essentially we are talking about the same things, the same concepts, but different language and coming from different points of experience. So I can definitely put myself on the spiritual side of things. Now, as a practitioner, what that means is, this is my 24th year of working with the spirits, with the ancestors. It's just that now the last 4 years of the 24 is now me being a practitioner. So what that means is, during my journey, there are certain initiations that you go through. There are certain upgrades of your gifts that you receive. There's certain wisdom that you accumulate through the years, that when you get to a certain point, now you are able to bring it to people. You become like what the concept, I don't know if you've heard about this concept of the wounded healer.
Yes.
Right. And if the Southern Africa communities or cultures also have that concept of the wounded healer, where your first meeting with the ancestors will probably be, it can lead to a lot of a clash, an internal clash, right? And that's because what you thought was a reality turns out not to be. Now you have to be introduced to a different reality or a new reality. So having worked with the ancestors, I can say I'm definitely convinced that our people had the right idea, they had the right belief system. Now, I have a wonderful foundation to be able to stand in front of the country and be able to take them through what my knowledge, my wisdom, my experience is, and they're able to now see it happening. So yes, I can say I'm spiritual. My family background is Christian, Anglican actually, Anglican. So I definitely have some appreciation for the doctrines of Christianity. I can appreciate them, but my ancestors are taking me in a different direction. Right.
According to you, what have the ancestors told you this was false? This is what you believed for a long time, but this is not the truth. This is not the reality.
Right. The very first thing, and this happened, this was when I was 16, 17, I really used to struggle with the concept of hell. And then, because I used to say, wait a minute, you can't say, there's a contradiction. You can't say God is all loving, for instance. And then at the end of the day, this all loving individual is now doing an action that is really not considered to be loving. It's a punishment, but it's not a punishment that is meant to be rehabilitative. It sounds almost punitive, right? So if it's punitive, the soul that is being burned for eternity does not have any form of redemption or source of redemption. So what does that mean? So there's a bit of a disconnect there. So and it brings that point of fear. So you should not be in religion or spirituality because of fear. That is the wrong starting point. So I realized I'm a Christian because of that. I'm afraid of hell, really. And I know it's the easiest thing to do sometimes, to indoctrinate through fear, but it creates so much trauma, and it's very difficult to unpack, because I work with Christians as well who are in the church. Some even have positions in the church, which is great because they're able to see, oh, I'm in the church, I'm a Christian, but I can certainly appreciate what you do. I can appreciate maybe you have some wisdom to give me, some solution to my issues. But when you see that happening, you realize, wow, we were lied to in terms of that. I was sold a lie, fear, to make me fearful of going my own way or making my own conclusions. That's the first thing. The second thing was, again, I was 16, and you're developing into a woman, I suppose. I was thinking, well, I know I have a heavenly father. So now where is the mother, though? Where is the mother? There's always a balance. There's masculine and feminine. And I understand the father is there, and that's great. But as a developing woman, I knew, in my heart of hearts, I knew there's also a great mother figure, just as the way there's a great father figure. So where is that mother figure? So that became my departure point for my journey, to understand where is the mother. And I came to realize that our early African religions were goddess-based. They were mother-based. Ancestral religions or beliefs are very maternal in nature. So I believe I'm at a point where I can say I'm balanced. I'm balanced because I have a heavenly father. Yes, because my culture, the Luo high god, is still there. Yes. So I have balanced that with my heavenly father. But I have also met and made peace with my mother, right, with the divine feminine. And that becomes somebody who's balanced. You can't say I'm too much on one side or too much on the other side. What about, you have to look at both sides. Yeah, so that is the basis of the things that I needed to unpack. I needed to unpack my fear of repercussion, because the fear keeps you from exploring, from getting out of the house. You can imagine if you're a mother and you have your toddler running around. I know we are usually very protective, but at some point you have to let the child go outside. You can only terrify your child so much about the outside world. You must let them go. Whatever happens, yes, they will get hurt, but you have to, that's why you need to guide them through that process. So my relationship with God or deities in general changed, because I realized, no, it should not be about fear. These are beings that are here to help me as a soul to get to a point where I can also become an ascended master, just like Jesus was. And I believe we are all told to be like Jesus, isn't it?
Yes.
So I believe we are more or less on the same path.
And one of the things we use as Africans is our ancestors, my ancestors. Yes. I can feel the energy or the support of my ancestors. My ancestor is here. How do we speak to our ancestors, or how do our ancestors speak to us?
That's a great question. I was just telling one of my clients yesterday.
Yeah.
I was doing an ancestral reading, ancestral divination. Was it on Monday? And it's very simple. One thing I like about our religions is there's no complications. Our ancestors communicate through three means. The first one is dreams. right? And dreams are very potent in African traditions or African cultures. In fact, when you wake up, usually people ask you, did you dream about anything? Because we believe that the dreams are dialogues at the end of the day, depending on how you treat them.
Yeah.
So the ancestors will communicate via dreams. And usually in those dreams, sometimes you can also see animal figures, certain animals come into the dream. And depending on how the animal is behaving around you, you can kind of tell where you stand in the ancestral realm. And there are people who, I was posting the other day about Madiba and how he was attacked by bees in his home, ancestral home, of all things. And you know, that's a very potent message because bees are the Madiba clan's totem. So he was being told that he's annoyed and angered his ancestors to a point. So that happened in real life. But you see, he could still have had a dream that he's being chased by bees or being stung by bees. That's a statement from the ancestral realm. So another person could have a dream that you've been bitten on your hand by a dog, for instance. Or a snake has bitten your foot. Somebody was telling me they veered. They were in the dream. They were doing. It was like episode 2 of a dream, because in the first dream, they were playing a very nice game or sport with their friends.
Yeah.
And this dream was telling them about their purpose. The next time I talked to this person, they had a dream where now they were outside. They had veered from a different path. They were walking down a different path from what he was doing in the previous dream, and he was bitten by a snake. So I was telling this person, this is a simple dream. From the last time we spoke, what you were meant to do, have you stuck to that course of action, or you've been distracted? Because it looks like you've been distracted, and that path that you're going down, there's a warning you're being given. So ancestors can warn you through dreams and through the action of certain animals. That's just how it works.
Yeah.
And you see, that's why when you interpret from a Christian perspective, they will tell you if a snake has bitten you, okay, maybe there's demonic activity. Fine, there's a Christian way of looking at it, but there's the African way of looking at it. We will not tell you this is, the first thing we'll tell you is we'll ask questions. What kind of a snake was it? First of all, what color was it? What were you doing? So we have to find out. So ancestors communicate via dreams. That's the first thing. Secondly, which is related to the first, is intuition. Right? So if you're someone who is very in tune with your own internal cycles, especially after you've had dreams, now you know this means this means that, then you start realizing as you're walking your path that you're getting certain insights. And when you start getting those insights, you know, wow, I have connected with my enlightened, elevated, benevolent ancestors. Because ancestors who are elevated are the ones who shift your consciousness. They are the ones who give you the grand ideas. Then we have the other ancestors who are more concerned with the earthly matters day to day, right? So there's that. Secondly, the third one is divination, which is why practitioners like myself exist, right? So people would come to me and they would have questions. They would maybe come for an ancestral reading. You're able to see certain threads running through families, certain lineages. I have learned so much about the ancestral realm, Lynn, through doing readings for people. You can see so much. How certain traits run through families, how certain blessings or certain blockages or certain curses run through families, and how they manifest. So that by the time you're coming to me, it's a crisis, right? So the important thing to realize and notice that in our religions, our ancestors' wisdom comes first of all from you. Before you come to me, there's some activity, there's some connection the ancestors have tried to communicate to you about, so that you're coming to me only to help you understand or to piece together what could be happening.
Yeah,
so those are the 3 key ways.
And I think like intuition, I know I'm highly intuitive, and I'm always like, nilikuwa nasikia kakitu kalikuwa kananiambia, then you go against it, oh my god, and then you pay the price for going against that intuition, like
yes.
you which is amazing. But now let's get into Kenya as a country, as an African country. Spiritually, where are we?
In 2019, I believe it was 2019, that we got, I believe this was a collective message that we received. Not just myself, in different capacities. You can see this trend sometimes. One day you log on to social media or a particular week and see different practitioners talking about the same thing and who are unrelated. And you wonder, how did they agree? Did they collude? What's going on? But in actual sense, you've just received the same download, right? So in 2019, the collective message that I received or we received in our different capacities was that 2020 to 2030 is an ancestral decade. This is the decade where you will know we are there. We have been relegated to the shadows. We have been relegated to the unconscious. And I can definitely say the generation of our parents, we love you, we love them very much, but the generation of our parents were the most Christianized generation. And being Christianized then therefore would mean that you repress your African soul, your African identity. And we know those people who are in the psychological fields or counseling fields understand what happens when you repress something. When you repress it, it goes into the shadow. Then what happens is it will erupt. It's just a matter of time, right? So it's mark timing. So in this case, the case of Kenya, it's remember I was talking about families, lineages? Now that is a micro, right? Because in Kenya, this ancestral transformation, this ancestral awakening is happening first and foremost at familial level, right? So you're seeing many people rising, and people like myself, like in my family, we are Christians, but one person in the family will rise or awaken and suddenly become connected to the spirits of the family. And sometimes it doesn't have to be the whole family. But there's always one person who will, and especially if they're susceptible, they will connect. And then from there, they start breaking certain cycles that are generational. This year, I believe I have been a person, and in personal capacity, I think I've been able to say like 1 or 2 generational cycles that are ending with me.
Wow.
And that's how you do it. And I tell people, don't imagine ancestral curses are broken in some grand dramatic way. No, it happens through what you choose to pass on and what you choose to end at your level. You don't even need to even bring in other members of the family. Doing your own work diligently helps you to bring about almost. Now imagine that at a macro level, because the nation is like a family, isn't it? It's a motherland. So we are a family, and we also have generations in that family. Now, I don't know if you're aware, there are certain ailments that pass through families. Sometimes they skip a generation and go to the next one. Exactly. So in this case, it's the family, our parents' generation almost that got skipped almost. I'm named after my grandmother, right? And she was born, we share certain, if you look at our charts, I've gone into our charts, we share my grandmother, my mother, myself, my son, we have the same Saturn sign. There's certain themes, and you can even see it in charts, because I also look at the birth chart, astrology. So I can look at this spiritually, I can look at it astrologically, and still see the same thread. So what we are seeing now is an eruption of what has been suppressed, right, for decades and decades, by at least one generation. Now, our parents, they did the best they could with what they had. But us as the children, we have to bear with the consequences of what they took in and what they rejected. Now, it is us, especially for me as a millennial, who have been doing what I call excavation work. So bringing back all that information that was repressed to the masses. Now, those who are younger, who are Gen Z, isn't it, as we call them that. Now, for millennials who are doing the excavation work, Gen Z, then by the time they're coming of age, they find there's a certain level of consciousness that is there. There's a certain level of work that we have also done collectively. Now, for them, they have no ties. They have no ties to religion the way we did because of our parents. They have no ties to government or to parties the way our parents did, right? So it means that they are best placed, they're in the best position. And I looked at their birth chart, their collective birth charts. It's amazing. You can't make it up. They are particularly being triggered at the point where they are revolutionary. They're in a very revolutionary state. Already naturally, they are revolutionary. You know that Gen Z are very innovative, and that comes with Aquarius. I know we've all heard about Age of Aquarius.
Tell us.
Yes, indeed. That's
Tell us.
a TED Talk.
It's a TED Talk on its own.
I will definitely let me try and summarize it. But Aquarius is such a massive theme for this particular moment. Because one, we are in the age of Aquarius, which I will explain. Two, in 2020, there was a massive conjunction of 2 planets, Jupiter and Saturn, in Aquarius, and we talked about the effect of that conjunction would last 20 years. So I was talking about how you're going to start seeing changes. You're going to start seeing changes in religion, in the church, how we view the church, and you can already see, because I was talking about this in 2020. In 2024, you can imagine what is happening now. The people are viewing the church differently already. So what tends to happen, Lynn, when the ancestors told us this is an ancestral decade, what happens is they won't wait until 2029 to switch on the events. No, events will start percolating. You'll start seeing very small shifts in consciousness. You'll start seeing people flaring up a little bit more. In the case of Gen Z right now, oh wait, I forgot, I was talking about Age of Aquarius.
Yes.
Now, the concept is, I know we know about the zodiac wheel, the astrological wheel, isn't it? Now, we know about our sun signs. We know how, the sun stays in each sign for, say, a month or so. But now when you come to the ages, an age lasts 2,160 years because the sun and even the solar system is in that sector of a constellation that is known as Aquarius. Now, before that, it was in Pisces. And what I was talking about in 2020 was that Pisces is the age of is the sign of the church. And when we were in the age of Pisces, the church was very powerful. And for 2,160 years, the church was very powerful. The church had the means and the wherewithal and the will to stifle or persecute or grow itself. Now, if you look at the Pope, he even has the symbolism of Pisces with the cap that is like a fish's head. Then he has the ring of the fisherman, which is known as the piscatory ring, which is from Pisces itself. But then what happened? If you look at the Reformation, that was around the 16th century, several planets lined up in the sign of Pisces. Now, what happened at that time, the astrologers talked about, because Pisces is a water sign, they were talking about how, we have to look forward to a flood. There's definitely the world is ending by a flood. But that's not what happened, much as it was a particularly very rainy, very wet season type of year. And we saw that too this year, isn't it? But what happened is it led to Martin Luther rising up against the church and talking about how, no, the Pope or the church, the Pope should not be, or the priest should not be the direct source to God. So that was the core of the power of the church, by saying we are the ones who are connected to divinity. Nobody else. You must come through us. But what that lineup in Pisces meant is that, no, now tides are shifting. People are awakening to their own divinity and saying, why can't I pray at home and reach God?
Why can't
those
I
were
talk
the
to
issues.
God
Exactly.
myself?
Exactly. So those were the issues back then. So again, that was it was a reformation within religion. Now, this particular year, between 2023 and 2024, we have what we call Saturn in Pisces. So what I was talking about, what we'll see happening is that now you start seeing a split in the church. And you'll see us, and we've seen there's been a lot of debate between what's coming, the edicts coming out of the Vatican, and what is being, how it's being received on the ground. So the church is losing its grip. Slowly and surely, it is losing its grip. The Holy Land as well is losing its grip if you look at what's been happening with Israel. So right now, it's a rude awakening for everyone who's watching and everyone who's rooted in Christianity. And they're seeing all these events and thinking, is the world ending? So Age of Aquarius comes right after Age of Pisces. What does that mean? First of all, the power of the church becomes very, very dwindles. And why is that? Because Aquarius is very revolutionary. Aquarius is an awakener. Aquarius is very much an awakener. And it awakens you to your own divinity, not necessarily to religious institutions. We've all been projecting spiritual authority on our bishops, the Pope, the priests. But suddenly, when the tides shift, so do our consciousness, or how we are looking at certain things. They also must shift, because there has to be a reflection and divine design in everything, and geometry. So what is even happening now with Gen Z makes sense. As an Age of Aquarius, you really can't be surprised that such an event, a revolutionary event, would happen during the Age of Aquarius. and with individuals who have Aquarius so prominently placed in their birth charts. Another thing about Aquarius is, you know how in religion, many figures, religious figures were martyrs. They died for their religion, and it's seen as, oh my, this is such a virtue. In the age of Pisces, it was a virtue to die as a sacrifice. It was the age of the sacrificial lamb. But Aquarius, age of Aquarius, is suddenly you're romanticizing suffering. That's what you'll be told. What do you mean? Must I sacrifice myself for humanity? Why can't humanity do its work and raise its own consciousness one by one? Why can't humanity carry its own cross? Why does it have to rely on one individual to carry their burdens? So Aquarius will push back and say, but you also have divinity within you. Why are you expecting me to lead you towards your own journey?
Does it make sense then why there is not a particular person leading this? Absolutely. It's more of a collective responsibility.
Yes, absolutely.
Sikubebe mzigo.
Yeah, kila mtu abebe, carry your cross. And that's what Jesus said. In fact, Jesus is Son of Man is associated with Aquarius as well. And in the Bible, they say there will come a time when the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the heavens. And I know we read it literally. Yeah. But what do you mean? A celestial sign of the Son of Man, that's definitely associated with the stars, something happening in the heavens, the celestial sphere. So the sign of the Son of Man is in the heavens already because we're in the age of Aquarius. And you can see how things have changed. It means it's the end of the world, simply means the end of the age. The end of the age. The world is not ending. The world is changing or shifting into a new age. And we've been in this new age for a while. In astrological circles, there are those who will tell you, oh, the age of Aquarius started in 2012. Others will tell you it started in 2020. But the traditional old school guys say it started back in February of 1912. It's been a century, which makes sense because the way cycles work, they have to percolate. Things don't just end because the sun moved into a different sector. Things have to go systematically. So when you think about age of Aquarius, I want us to think about it in very broad terms. Another thing associated with Aquarius is its technology. And you can see AI, proliferation of AI, because Aquarius is associated with Uranus and also with Prometheus, the one who stole fire from the gods and brought it to man. So stealing fire, in a way, speaks to scientific advancement. Yeah. But in a way, much as we are stealing fire, we must do so in a way that is ethical or helps humanity. Because you can steal fire and then use it to destroy humanity. What is happening with the nuclear armament and what have you. The negative use of technology. So technology should be used to uplift humanity, not the way it's happening, where we're just creating AI to mine more data and capital from people. So there's a lot of implications and things that are to be expected during this time. So I'm very happy, actually, and I'm not surprised to see that the Gen Z, that generation, has caught that wave. Because we can already see this wave, it's not just a Kenyan phenomenon. Right? It's not a Kenyan phenomenon. The Aquarius energy, the revolutionary energy, Plutonian energy as well, because there's a lot of war in the air, particularly this year, with good reason. If you follow me on my Facebook, I really talk about it in depth. But you can already see how the world, different parts of the world are picking up on these energies and acting it out in some ways. Or in the case of Kenya, we are already in a revolutionary spirit. We've been in a revolutionary spirit for the last 4 years, but it's been latent. It's just been sitting. It's been potential energy. But then what happens is something is brought to the collective that triggers a reaction from that point, from a point of the revolutionary spirit. I looked at our chart. You know, nations have charts as well, birth charts, astrology. Nations? Yes, countries.
What's ours?
Ours, we are Sagittarius Sun, Pisces Moon. It's a lot of things with transits. I'll break it down on my page soon. Okay. But what you can see happening there is we are being triggered at the point of our money wounds, our money issues, financial issues. The second house is being triggered. So the finance bill is bringing our money wounds to our attention. And this finance bill has woken us up or has become the vehicle or the instrument through which we are awakening. to our financial issues. And now we are taking back power. We're not allowing others to make the decisions for us and passing on the money wound to subsequent generations. We must heal this money wound in this generation, so that the other generation that is meant to dismantle the system won't have as much problems or as much issues. So I would say that's definitely one of the factors that is driving this initiative to reject this finance bill, which makes sense. Because another thing, Lynn, with Africa is we have a money wound. Right, we are net creditor. We owe the most. We owe more than we than are owed to us. So we already have a very negative relationship with money. Right, you can see financial corruption as well, systemic failures, and lack of enforcement. Then you have another wound on the other side, I call that the money wounds are from the Capricorn side. Opposite Capricorn is Cancer. Cancer now has to do with domestic matters of the home. And you know, Africa is even called the motherland, isn't it?
Yes.
We are the motherland. So there's something about us that is very homely, very domestic, very connected to the past. But the dark side of that is it makes us very clannish, very tribal. And you know, politicians love to trigger that wound during election years, right? Our clannishness tends to be triggered around that time, which is another thing that is being addressed right now, because the generation that is rising does not have clannishness, does not have those groups of Mtuwetu, right? It's about us as a people, not us as a particular community or a tribe. So it makes them even more difficult to manipulate or trigger based on our legacy wounds, which is our clannishness, our tribalism, and also our money wounds. Right.
Man.
I know. I know. It's a lot of things. And when you look at it, you wonder. In 2021, I actually looked at, I challenged myself to predict the outcome of the election, 2022. So in 2021, I did that whole, it took me 2 weeks to do the analysis between Raila and Ruto. Now, to be honest, it was a very difficult point in my life, because I had to be very objective, right? I wasn't supporting Ruto for sure, but his cards were wonderful. His cards were saying essentially he's winning the election. Much as you don't like it, this is what's going to happen. But I remember thinking, okay, fine, this is going to happen, but what about all these other issues or all these other flags that I'm identifying that need work? Because one of the points I was raising is there's going to be ideological warfare for 4 years of the 2022 term. If this person does not have an ideology that is solid, he's going to be fighting for his political life for majority of his term. And the way I framed it was the best place to communicate your ideologies is a biography. Right? Because a biography tells us who you really are. Because my point is, do we know this person? What is this person's highest ideals for this nation? And sometimes you can tell a lot of things from reading somebody's biography. One of the examples I gave was Enigma. You remember when Enigma came out? Yes. It was a biography, and it came the year after there was that issue when Kibaki reneged on Raila's giving him a position, and then the biography came out, and then people came out in numbers in 07.
Yes.
And then even the same case with Obama, Dreams from My Father, it was huge. It created a wave. People now got to know him and they bought into his ideologies, meaning they came out in numbers. So my point was, so what is Ruto's ideology? Because this is what is coming, ideological warfare. And ideological warfare is thoughts. If you don't have a thought that is solid, you're going to suffer. We're no longer doing elections as popularity contests. I think 2022 was the last one. No, 2017 was the last popularity contest. 2022 was ideological. And we can see what's happening right now. They are getting beaten by the rain because of the lack of a working ideology. So I would tell the government really to go back to the drawing board, because they also need to read the room. This is a sign of the times. If you trigger, imagine when the nation is in a revolutionary mood and you trigger their money wound, you give them a finance bill that they do not agree with. What do you expect to happen? You're essentially just hurrying up our development, or our conscious development. And that's what I realized. That's why I realized maybe this is why we have this president right now. Maybe we needed to see so that we can enhance or grow in terms of our social political awareness. Maybe we needed to go through dystopia to wake up. We needed to go through the worst of it to say, nah. It ends here. It ends with us. So I can see why. Maybe this is why this Ruto had to become president, because for me back then, it wasn't making sense. So right now, it depends on how the government handles it. Do we go with the times? Do we read the times and work around it, or do we forge ahead with hubris?
If you were him, what would you do?
Oh my. If I were him, I would surround myself with people who know the times, or advisors who understand the times, or who can tell the trends. And he's a Christian, isn't it? It's in the Bible, the book of Ruth, I believe. It was a king who had to consult with several wise men in the kingdom who understood the times. That's how it is put. So if a king running a kingdom does not run it by himself, because you are representing an entire people, the point is you're supposed to have help, because you can't be perfect in all things. If you can't formulate an ideology, surely there are people who can do that. You have to be teachable, right? I believe our president was a teacher before. So sometimes teachers can have that thing. They can have that shadow where they are not teachable. They're the ones who are teaching others. And they treat you like you're their pupils in their class, right? So teachability is what I would tell them. And humility, because the people are telling them. An entire generation is telling them, you people missed this. We are reminding you there's something you've missed. The government needs to come to the table. It needs to come to the table and concede. Here, we went wrong here and here. This was a mistake. We are committed. Let's do this in a way that helps. And another thing I was talking about on my page, another issue that we have as Africans and even as Kenyans, is what they call the Wakanda Complex, right? And Wakanda Complex, it's a West African journalist who came up with that concept. And I really liked it, because it's like a state of social-political consciousness where you prioritize resources over people, right? So, and in this case, remember how we were talking about earlier that, we want to become net importers.
Yes.
When the government wants to focus on, GDP numbers, we want to increase our GDP, we want to clear all our debt, we want to do this and this and this. But that becomes your priority over health, over services, over infrastructure. It makes no sense. That's our Wakanda Complex, where, and finance bill is even more of a Wakanda Complex, because you've turned your people into resources itself. So the people become sources just to power the government or to power the budget. No, people are not resources. And you see that's a difference between the global south and the global north. And I know there are issues there, because we were colonized. We have all those issues to unpack. We need to decolonize, because another thing with African governments is that the state of consciousness of our leaders is still at colonial level. I'm sorry to say that, unfortunately. And there are cases where we have leaders who are more, the next stage of consciousness is what you call Negritude, where by us, for us, Pan-Africanism, pro-Africanism. But let me put it like this. There are 4 stages of Black consciousness. This was my dissertation, by the way, 15 years ago in campus. So I still remember there are 4 stages. I wrote about Black consciousness, and the first one is slave consciousness. So slave consciousness is, a century ago, where you feel you're even less, you're made to feel like less of a human than the people who are colonizing you, isn't it? So for you to be a slave anyway, you have to be dehumanized, isn't it? So that there's that. Then after slave consciousness, it becomes colonial. Now it moves from, I was even lesser than an individual. Now I'm in a state where I can aspire to become like my colonialist, like my oppressor. In that way, when I get to that point, maybe I'll have the same opportunities, the same resources. So we strive to become like these people, right? And also we take what they are saying at face value over our own people. So our leaders are at colonial consciousness, unfortunately. Yeah. Now, after colonial consciousness, you have Negritude. Kina Seda Senga, Leopold Senga, the ones who are talking about Akina Julius Nyerere, the ones who are talking about Ujamaa, Akina Kwame Nkrumah, Akina Sankara. Those are the ones who had Negritude, and also Patrick Lumumba. But unfortunately, leaders who are now in that African mode tend to be either cooled or assassinated. That's now the unfortunate part, right? So we need to work around how do we do this. Then we have transcendental consciousness. The transcendent person or a transcendent leader is now able to balance both. They're able to see, yes, I'm for Africans, I'm for my people. However, I am realistic enough to see what's going on in the world. There's politics I have to play, but I'm going to play this politics, but unfortunately, I'm going to infiltrate the system. I'm not participating in this system. I am infiltrating it for purposes of my own people and to grow them. So unfortunately, we lack leaders who are at that stage. So that's why I talked about generational issues.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting to see when we will get to that point where we do not elect leaders who have the colonial mindset, because we can see that our oppressors now are no longer people who are a different race or color from us. It's a person with the same color. So what does that mean? It means that colonialism is a mindset. It's not a race thing. It's a mindset. So that's one of the things we are heading there. We're heading there. So this is just the beginning. So you can imagine what happens when the population is enlightened, but the leaders are not. You're going to have pushback. You're going to have tension, very natural tension.
The population is enlightened,
Yes.
but the leaders
are not.
Why do you think majority of the people are mad at the church right now?
Oh, wow. Number one, I would attribute that to the natural cycle of the church is on its dying leg. If we work with the date of the age of Aquarius starting 1912, then it was around that time that religion was being really inculcated in colonized countries, African countries. So religion was brought to Africa when it was on its last legs. So that's another very important thing. So it means that it was not built to last. It was already declining when it was brought to Africa as is, Christianity as is, right? Because we also know there are foundational Christian movements, Ethiopia, the Copts in Egypt, and that's different. So you can imagine bringing a belief system that is in its decline era. It's not going to stay that long. In fact, I'm shocked it endured for a century. That's still, it's admirable anyway. So there's one. So the church, naturally, because of that shift from Pisces to Aquarius, religion is declining. That's number one. Number two, the spiritual needs of the people are changing. Right? The spiritual needs are changing. We are not in that era where we have to wait for Bible study or call the pastor to our home to counsel us about one or two things. Now we have even more access. Some of these issues that we were taking to our pastors, really we needed to have taken them to therapists. And now we have therapists around. So now we also have practitioners who are supporting people in issues where they used to take it to the church. Because there are people who sometimes would have a mental illness, but they go to church and they're told, no, we need to pray this away. And maybe
demons.
It's demons, but maybe it's a mental illness. So with the proliferation of technology and more knowledge and understanding, people have then gone to the actual practitioners for their problems. The church then becomes only spiritual guidance. But also, the church is showing itself to be hypocritical, because you can see what happened the other day when they closed the gates, isn't it? It was which church was that closed the gates?
Holy Family Basilica.
Holy Family Basilica.
We were
yes.
there. We were closed on.
Imagine.
But I'm glad now.
Yeah.
I appreciate growth when I see it. So I won't sit here and now they are actually changing the tune.
They had to
but
do
we were there when they were closing the gates on us. You know, we were actually right there in the middle of tear gas. We needed but moving on.
How does that work?
Yes.
Yeah, but I understand was it Jamia they opened?
Yes, they did. They did.
Which is very...
The irony.
The irony.
Now the irony.
The irony, but so you see Islam also suffers a lot of, they call themselves the religion of peace, but you see they suffered so much, especially in the early 2000s. But now you're looking at it as, wow, it's this religion that is not even the majority religion that is stepping up or putting their money where their mouth is.
Yes.
So the church has proved itself through its initial actions, not the corrective one.
Yeah.
through the initial actions, they are showing where their loyalties lie. And if you look at the case of Samuel in the Bible, Samuel was the one who anointed Saul, isn't it? He anointed Saul as king. And then it was also the same Samuel. When Saul became too arrogant to even listen to the directions of Yahweh, it was the same Samuel who came back to Saul and told him, now you're cancelled.
Yes.
You're cancelled. You were anointed, but then you
dethroned him.
Yeah, you dethroned him, essentially. So that is also another function of religious leaders, that you're the same ones who anoint these leaders, you're the same ones who also must go back and remind them where their source of authority comes from. So that's what happened. And we need to see more of that, because I think it was just yesterday that the churches started releasing statements on their stand.
Too late,
Just
if you ask me.
Yeah, too late.
And I saw one of the things I saw also that really made me ask myself, what is this? I think they asked the pastor what he thinks about the finance bill. And he was like, me, I am going to pray about it. I don't know what it is about. Why are you leading?
Thank you. That's the other thing. Actually, that's the other point, right? Because, and that's another thing. Somebody had asked me a few weeks ago. There was this anti-marine kingdom ministries, the ones who send they send warriors to the marine kingdom instead of emissaries. And you wonder, why are you sending warriors? You should be sending diplomats. And we saw what happened with the floods, right? You should be sending diplomats to the marine kingdom, not warriors. But that aside, the spiritualization of political problems in Kenya and in Africa, right? Like, oh, we have an issue. Oh, God will take care of it. Let's pray. Let's go to church. Let's have a national prayer day. Like last year, they were praying for rain last year. But then they didn't know that El Nino is on the way. Anybody on the ground would have told them, you need not. It's going to be, we are going to have more water than necessary, right? So the spiritualization of political problems leads you to inaction. You don't become an engaged citizen. And that's the other thing I was saying, that we need to know when to now bring in or leverage our spirituality, and when to now take action in the real world. You can't pray everything away. There's a point you will need to stand up and get out of your house and do something. So that's what I like, that it has changed now. Nobody's talking about we need to pray for these problems to go away.
For this finance bill.
Yes, so that's another reason for religion declining, because religion will always give you that one solution. Let's pray about this.
Yeah.
Let's just pray for our leaders. They will do better. What do you mean? How are you going to pray for your leaders if you don't tell them, caution them yourself that you have gone against the will of God who put you in this position? You've gone against the will of the people who voted for you. So what do you mean pray for our leaders? You're the mouthpiece. Tell this person in no uncertain terms. So I like that people are actually now able to see some of these gaps within religious groups, within religion as a whole, and they can see that, wow, these people don't really walk the talk, really. When it comes down to it, they don't walk the talk. They will probably align themselves with power more than they align themselves with the powerless, and that becomes an issue.
Wow.
Yeah.
I feel like repeating that. They would rather align themselves with power than align themselves with the powerless. Oh my goodness.
Exactly.
Can I ask you something? From where you're sitting,
Yeah.
are our ancestors angry at our president or the leadership of this country?
Actually, they are angry at, I would say it's the collective, but yes, they are not happy with what's happening currently. They're not happy with the leadership. That's for sure. Because the current leader is anointed by a different deity, isn't it? It's Yahweh. It's not the ancestors who brought this leader. But even so, the ancestors are not coming to sabotage. They want the best. They want us to grow into a state where we can stand on our own. Take a Taiwan, for instance, right? First world nation with a sea goddess. The sea goddess, and the marine kingdom warriors tell us that, the marine kingdom is evil, and we are poor because of the marine, or our ancestors are the ones who are making us poor. What do you mean? What do you mean ancestors are making us poor? The ancestors have been relegated. They've not even been on the scene actively for a century, right? We've been giving you people the opportunity to take us, lead us to Canaan, as it were. but you're taking us round in circles. We're not getting there. So now we have to intervene. The ancestors have intervened. Now we have to go through the dry path. And the dry path is a tough one because it comes with tension. And whenever two wills or two ideas meet, you're not going to have a peaceful change or transformation. Change must be tough, naturally. Because, Lynn, if things are not difficult, you will never change, even in your personal life, isn't it? Like, you'll be comfortable. Like, why do I need to change? I'm making my money.
Yeah.
You know, everything is fine. I have nothing to complain about. You won't go to the streets, right? But when you start feeling the pinch, even in general life, you'll start looking at yourself like, where did the rain start beating me? What do I need to do to change my conditions? Which is another reason people also come to us as practitioners, because something is going wrong in their life. There's a crisis. What do they do to bring themselves back on track? So as a nation, we are on track. Let me tell you, we're on track. In fact, we are doing better than we imagined from a democratic perspective. Yes, economically, we are a powerhouse. But from a political consciousness perspective, we really haven't been for a few years. We haven't been. And now we are seeing it, because these are the same uprisings that we are seeing happening in West Africa. We've seen them in France, protests. So protests don't make us, they make us very active citizens as well. And another thing I would like to add, Lynn, is that the Arab Spring, it came out of food, issues with food. Yeah, wheat, isn't it?
Yes.
Exactly. And you can imagine, these are people who have not even looked at history. You don't understand the cycle, so you're repeating it. Yes. And
Go on.
The generation that is here is now here to remind us that, please, you guys are doing, you've messed up. Kindly, let's go back on track. Let's look at this so that we don't repeat this cycle.
Yeah.
Because from where things are going, African Spring is coming, but it's slated for later in the decade. So it's very interesting to see that Kenya is flaring up right now. So the president needs to be very cautious, because this is not even a tough period. 2028, 2029, that's going to be a tougher period in Africa. So I think we better take our lessons now. The government better learn now, so that they don't get it worse come 2028.
Yeah. You know, you've said something important, because we have people who could read rain, weather, and whatever.
Yes.
Like, I'm not against praying. We will pray, but does it hurt to ask the people who used to do this to read?
Yeah, the cycles. These are seasons. They're the seasons. That's why we had the rainmakers, because they understand the seasons and the cycles so well that they don't need to do rituals to bring the rain. All they need to do is go to a place and rain will come. Right? They know when the rain is going to come to a certain place, and they know what to do as well. We have the water dowsers, the ones who can sort of detect a well so that they can dig there. And they used to do it with sticks, surely. With no technology, sticks. So there's that. And then last year, I also spoke about floods. There's going to be an uptick in floods. There's going to be an uptick in hurricanes. Right, and tsunamis. And we even had did we not see a hurricane in Kenya?
We did.
We actually did. We did. And when I was talking about it, I was giving the example of Saudi Arabia back in 2008. I was giving the examples of England, where there's so much rain. The rain worth, like a month's worth of rain fell in 24 hours. But what did we see in Dubai? Rain worth 2 years, falling in the span of 24 hours.
Yeah.
So that trend was there. So there are people who are connected to the natural cycles of the earth, and these are the people that are demonized. So when they tell you, because I mentioned it in 2023, and then I reminded people again, and I remember when the floods came, I was quite upset, to be honest. I think that was my moment. That was my Jesus wept moment. That was my time of take this cup of suffering, because why am I shouting into the void? What's the point of talking about something that you've seen and only to see it happen because nobody has taken any kind of action? But I was reminded that no, my job is to simply speak about what I'm seeing happening. My job is simply to warn, and that's it. Whatever happens from there becomes the responsibility of the people. The blood of the people that are taken in that event is no longer on my head, because I spoke about it, I warned about it. So after the floods, really, if you look at it, Lynn, water is a cleansing element, isn't it? And floods tend to represent waves that are coming to, like a very strong wave. It can even be an ideological wave if you look at it symbolically. So the floods were not just physical. You are spiritual. You are spiritual. There's something that needed to be cleansed out of our consciousness, mass consciousness, right? So that something new, a seed can be planted. And we were talking about it. The soil is ripe right now. It is a time to plant our seeds. But what people don't know is we've been planting these seeds since 2019. We are just now seeing things happening. So in spiritual circles, we are very proud.
Oh.
We are very proud and we are encouraged. We were getting discouraged at some point, but I can say we are encouraged.
Yeah.
So do not panic. This is actually a very positive shift, and it means even better things. Nobody will be able to trigger us from our wounds, from point of our wound. We will no longer vote from a place of instincts. We will not vote from a place of survival. We will vote with ideas, with policy in mind. So these are the things we've been talking about. The ancestors are supportive,
Yes.
and they're here to guide us through this process. By 2030, people will look back and say, indeed, it was an ancestral decade. Yes.
What happens if the president doesn't listen?
Well, then that becomes a crisis, because based on the cycle, the chart, the transit, it's going to take like a year or two. So this revolutionary spirit is still on. Because I remember in 2021, I was talking about 4 years of ideological warfare for Ruto as president. So does he have an ideology or not? If he doesn't, we are going to continue. And you see, it's about choosing the hill, the Golgotha. Choose your Golgotha. I don't think this bill is the Golgotha this government wants it to be, because they have another 2 years of tussling. So choose which one. Do you want this to be the one that takes you down, or do you want to kind of make a concession and wait for something that you actually believe in and die on that hill politically?
Yeah.
So if I was them, I would say this is not the hill to die on politically. And you can see MPs, here lies the bones of the political life of MPs who are voting yes, because people are now realizing, wow, so MPs are more aligned to their parties and to the people who elected them. Wow. So 2027, Lynn, you will see uptick in independent candidates. Some of my clients are young people, like they'll be 27 in 2027. And some of them want to run for MP, for office. Some of them want to run for MCAs. And I look at their charts, I look at their cards, and they're so scared. They're like, I'm so young. How am I going to even make it? And politics is just, one of those things in this country. But I usually tell them, I don't concern myself with the how. I don't care about how it will happen, because that's the job of the cosmos, that's the job of God, that's the job of the ancestors. They will know how it will happen, but it will happen. And you can see how the ground is changing. And I had to I've been calling my clients who want to be candidates. I'm like, you see, the ground is changing.
It's boiling nicely.
Yeah, it's boiling. Now by 2027, you will be able to stand up with, in fact, you'll have your own crew, you'll have your own people or base of people who support you.
Good.
Yeah.
I love what you said, that, the floods came. There was a reason. Because I feel like right now, I love that we are not doing this as a tribe. I love that people are actually so determined to do this as a nation.
Yeah.
And I feel like the way you said, something had to be washed.
Yes.
Cleansed.
Yes.
It's that thing, because right now they don't have an entry point.
Exactly.
It's not a tribal thing.
It's not tribal.
You cannot
weaponize
but there are a lot of people who are disregarding what's happening. I saw one person say, oh, this one is Illuminati. Oh, this one, they've been funded by people in Russia.
Okay.
This one. Is it to serve a purpose? Is it to...
Yeah, it's deflection. It's classic deflection, because then it means you're not taking into consideration what the people are saying. You're more concerned with where is this thing coming from than what are they saying. It doesn't matter. Even if they're being funded, it's fine, but the idea is not being funded. The idea was there. Probably it's just the way the movement is going that needs funds anyway. You can't manufacture a revolution in that way. You really can't, because again, the government has to do something to trigger a revolutionary spirit in the people. So talking about Illuminati is the same way. It's the same thing that I would caution anybody using that line of thought that careful not to blaspheme against the holy spirits of the land. Why are you saying this is an action that is coming from the gods of this land, and you're talking about Illuminati? What do you mean? Illuminati cannot power an entire generation. And a lot of this generation are too young to begin with, right? We are just becoming spiritually, politically, socially enlightened. And you can't take that away from us. Of course, they was going to demonize. That's a very Christian way of thinking. It's a devil. The devil has entered these people to do this thing. No. Take time to think about why these people are protesting. Why are they saying no? Don't tell us that you are more focused on turning Kenya into a net importer when there's no free maternity to begin with. Why do the average Kenyan does not want to know about that? They care about, how is my life like? Am I being turned into a resource? Or does the government actually hate me enough to say, you owe us? You are Kenyan, you owe us already.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you want to do away with Linda Mama,
Yeah.
and you want to talk to me about Kenya becoming a net
importer.
importer.
And the GDP rising by 2%. No,
Yes.
thank you. Because trickle down economics matters, and that's why I was very wary of trickle down economics, because clearly we can see that it does not happen. The GDP numbers and the net importing does not trickle down to services, right? So there's that. Then the hustler president is also not figuring, because it is the hustlers who are receiving the brunt of this government's failings, especially the financial failings. So let the government elevate the people over resource, over their money, over what the people can give us, which is taxes. It has to be the other way around. The people have to be in a place where they can pay you the taxes to begin with. And then you give them back services in return. They don't just, the obligation is two-way, by the way. You see, the government, that's why I'm talking about colonial mindset of leaders. Because the leaders don't understand, they have an obligation to the population, surely. You must give them back the service for the taxes they are paying you. But the colonial mindset means, no, you people owe us. We don't owe you any development in 5 years. Give us 10 years. Give us 10
Not
years.
5.
Yeah.
Also, we inherited
a mess from the previous government. No, it's just, we know what's going on when that happens, and we know the talking points, which don't make sense when you look at it. So no, let the government interrogate its complex, which is the Wakanda Complex, not turn people into resources. Listen to people and understand that it's the other way around. It's the people. They are servants of the people. They are not the other way around. Yeah.
Good. As we wind up, I know we're going to have you back for a couple of
course,
in-depth conversations.
Right.
But going back to our ancestors, for people who have been drifted so apart from the ancestors, for people who might have forgotten where we come from as Africans, how do we go back to where we belong? I'm asking for myself.
And others, and many others.
How do we take that journey back to where we belong?
I would say it start with yourself, start with your family. And that's what I usually say. Charity begins at home.
Yeah.
Sweep your own doorstep first and foremost before you get out there. And this year, like I talked about, it's the year to confront many skeletons in your families, respective families, and I think even other people. Just sit and reflect. The first half of this year, what family issues have come up for you guys to confront? Because it's a theme. That's a very important thing. So whatever family issues are coming up this year for different people, it's kind of a sign that, okay, something is happening, especially if it's something negative or what you look at a shadow that has come up. If there's a member of your family who's like a land grabber, we all have a land grabber in our family. In every family, there's a land grabber. There's always somebody who might not want the other person to succeed, so they revert to witchcraft, sorcery. There's that. That's also another wound, because it comes from a place of a place where you think you lack resources. So you kind of want to hoard for you and your family. So you don't want the other members of the family to succeed. So you revert to sorcery, which is another dark cancer trait. Remember the clannish, the dark sorcery is also part of that. So look at it from that perspective. Be able to treat the scapegoats of the family with compassion. That's another thing. That's another very important thing from the ancestors. You see the people who in your family, the addicts of the family, they are carrying a very heavy weight for the family. It is not just them. That's why they are addicts. It's too strong for them. Meaning this is somebody, and when you start interrogating, you realize there was somebody, either mother side or father side, that struggled with that. then another one, and another one. So depending on how you treat the scapegoat in your family, in a way, you are honoring that lineage. You're saying, I realize that as a family, we struggle with addiction, or we struggle with addictive tendencies. And maybe that speaks to how we handle stress as a family. How do we handle stress? Do we go face head on, or do we choose to escape? Then if you choose escape route, you end up into addictive tendencies. So I would tell people to start at family level. And also seek guidance, because no two families are exactly the same. And that's why for us as practitioners, we are there to start that process. Because then there are other people who now want to actively work with their ancestors. They want to now connect with them spiritually and work with them and have them guide. So that's another process altogether. But I would tell people also to pay attention to their dreams, because their dreams are also telling them. Your ancestors have probably reached out to you, Lynn, through your dreams. You know, there could have been an animal that came, there could have been an auntie or a long deceased grandparent that came to your dream to help you or to give you something. Pay attention to what somebody is giving you in the dream, especially if they're a family member. That kind of becomes a gift that is coming through the family. So look at this as a journey of unfoldment. It doesn't happen in one. My journey started in 2000, my spiritual journey. So 24 years later. So the people who come to me today and want to be enlightened by next week, it can't happen. It can't happen. It's a journey. You have to sort of be in it. You have to go through certain crises so that you can transform and then become the final, the final results. But I'm sure we'll get into it in depth going forward. But I would tell people, start at your family level, confront the family skeletons one by one in your own personal capacity, because they are skeletons that can't be confronted right away, and there are some that can.
Good, beautiful. I know people now are like, Lynn, where do we find her? One of the things I love is your Facebook posts. Okay, for me, that's where I come.
I didn't know you follow me, Lynn.
Remember the way you are telling us, tell us you've read the book of
Enoch.
Enoch without telling me you read the book of
You saw that post, oh my goodness.
And so many others, so many others.
I didn't know that.
Personally, that is where I camp, like your Facebook posts. You know, I'll get into Facebook, I'll look for you, I'll look for Wandia. There are people who I have to sleep, I'll look for Abdi. There are people who I need to know what they've posted
now
today.
I know.
Yes, but for people who might not know, your handles or social, where can they find you? And also if someone is interested in coming to you, on a personal level, how can they find you?
So I have my personal page on Facebook, which is Mildred Awino. And I choose Facebook for that because I find that I communicate very well through writing. They give me a dissertation or a thesis to write, I will write it. A TED Talk, I will write it. But I'll get to a point where I can get a YouTube and maybe Instagram and TikTok. But for now, it's Facebook because that's where I can write my many paragraphs, Mildred Awino. Then I also I'm working on my website. It should be out within a week or so. Yeah, it should be out. So there's that. Look out for that. It's going to be on. I'll definitely blast it on my page. So I would definitely ask people to follow Mildred Awino on Facebook. Then I also have, if they want to reach me on my page, I have pinned a post where you can DM All Things Mystic by Mildred. That's another Facebook page, just to help me with funneling inquiries, funneling sessions, booking and scheduling sessions. I have my assistant there who's manning that inbox. So DM All Things Mystic by Mildred, and you will be assisted in town. And anyone who wants to also reach out to me in any other capacity, because I also do education. I do, what we call decolonization efforts, spiritual decolonization efforts, right?
Oh, you're not Urumia from where you are sitting.
but now I'm looking at it like, well, finally,
we are awake.
Yeah, so finally,
it's been a long time.
It's
been a long time, Karen.
We were almost giving up, but we are very encouraged. In fact, I am personally energized. I feel re-energized, and this is this is the moment I was being prepared for. So I'll be here to support. I'm here to support and to assist those who are making this transition, this spiritual journey.
Beautiful. And finally, looking at this camera, please talk to the people of this nation. talk to the leaders of this nation, talk to the young people, the millennials, the generation before us, the millennials, talk to everyone, especially during this time.
Oh, indeed. And I'll start with the millennials, because I know millennials are usually, there's just a lot of things that are associated with millennials. They say, you know, we are lazy, we don't want to work. But the thing about millennials is that we realize that we cannot achieve the same things that our parents did at their young ages, right? When you are 30, by the time we were 30, when we were growing up, a 30-year-old was a grown-up, had achieved things that we can only achieve at 50. So the markers of adulthood have shifted or have moved further away. So maybe that's why you're feeling like, how can I be 35 and I'm not settled? Realize that this is late stage capitalism. You live in a different world. The role you're here to play is different. Your parents have already played that role. As millennials, those of us 80s babies, early 90s babies, our job is to excavate, to bring back the things that, the wisdom, the ancient wisdom that was relegated to the shadows, to the unconscious, right? And to bring it back to help our society. So the job you're doing is very important. To Gen Z as well, realize that you've taken, the mantle is on you, and we're so happy because you're doing the sprint. I'm very happy to pass the mantle to a Gen Z person, because I know they're going to do it.
In this one.
They understand that assignment, and that's great. And we are supporting them. We are very much behind you. The whole nation is behind you. You have the energy, the spirit for it. And I would say, Lynn, it's the same spirit that was there in the early 60s. The revolutionary spirit that was there in the 60s is the same spirit in this decade. And you need such revolutionary spirits if you want to see any kind of transformation. Societal transformation. Gen Alpha, the ones who are watching Skibidi Toilet right now, I know, they're watching Skibidi, but when you grow up, you're the ones who are going to dismantle the capitalist system. You're the ones who are going to give us a workable system that is Afro-centered. So even those who are raising Gen Alpha realize you have a responsibility. You are raising the new generation that will take over from this revolutionary generation. They're the ones who will home down the ideas. They're the ones now who will materialize ideas and our vision and the vision of the ancestors. I want to let you know that as a nation, our ancestors are proud. They are proud of you. Whatever is bound on earth is also bound in the ancestral realm. Whatever is rejected here is rejected. Stands rejected in the ancestral realm. And you will see for yourself. You will see for yourself. Let 2028 get here. You will see for yourself that we were going there. We are heading somewhere, and we're heading as a nation. And do not be panicked, do not be afraid. You're just living in the cusp of a new beginning, a new nation. That tends to come with some problems. The good thing about Kenyans is, it's even in our chart, we are an essentially peaceful nation. Okay? It's a peaceful nation. Lynn, the same conditions that are here this year are the same conditions that were here during post-election violence. But you see how they are playing out differently. In post-election violence, we were in our wounds, in our clannish wounds. We were fighting each other. But now we are not fighting each other. We are fighting the external. We are fighting the person bringing us the wounds. So I absolutely think it's very constructive, and I'm here for it. And I'm here to support the ancestors that support it.
I love that. And to our parents now.
To our parents. In fact, I'm very proud of them too. I'm noticing they're becoming more accepting, more open-minded. They are more curious. My page, I found, by the way, do you know I'm followed by people who are over 65 plus, if I look at my numbers, and I'm very impressed by that, because that means that there's also a cross-section of that generation, the boomer generation, who are also interested in unpacking many of those wounds for themselves as well individually. Our parents are doing the work. Some of them are supporting us. My father, shout out to my dad also. He's amazing. He tells me, you're a really good astrologer. The things that you do, you should be teaching in university.
Good. We second that.
We second that. But again, also, my clients are professors. I counsel professors. I look at their charts, people who are PhD candidates. So it's wonderful. We are taking this message to the nation and to the continent. So my ministry is only just taking off, right? Because also other Africans are plugged into this energy. So Kenya is showing Africa where we are heading to. And you will see a lot more activity, a lot more political action within Africa. as a result.
And this is just the beginning.
This is the seed. I've been saying this is the seed, and we are going to see a change. In 5 years, 2024, 4 years' time, you're going to see a very different kind of election, and you're going to see a very different response to political issues.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate you.
Asante.
We are blessed to have you.
I'm
looking at you with so much admiration, honestly.
Oh, thank
like
you.
With so much admiration. I feel our country is in a very safe place to have people like you around us.
Thank you.
You know, it's one thing to keep preaching these things to people and wanting to give up because you are like, why are we telling people kutakuwa na floods? And people are like, let's pray.
Let's pray.
Like, hey, act on it, you know.
Do something.
Do something, you know. So honestly, the same way you're saying that there are people who are carrying a whole load, you are one of those people for the nation. So we really do appreciate having people like you around us, and I also can't wait to see what the people who are watching are going to say on the comment section. It's been really enlightening for me, and I hope people can be able to come at your page. And also by the way, guys, what we've touched on is just a nutshell.
It's the surface.
It's just the surface of what she talks about. So I hope people can be able to come and just, you know, walk with you through that journey every time you post, and those conversations that you keep having on your profile. They are very important. You know, before we wind up, anything you want to say, anything you want to add on to that you feel like we might have left out and you just want to put it in there?
Oh, I forgot. I forgot in my concluding message a message to spiritual practitioners. I think this is so important.
Go on.
As spiritual practitioners, we've been persecuted for long. Many of us are in the shadows. Many of us don't want to come out and be seen. And I think I explained why we don't want to be seen. But you're needed. Speaking to spiritual practitioners, you're needed, even in whatever capacity. And those of you who've been doing the work faithfully and, you know, in your own space and from a place of deep conviction, continue, because there's a reason why you've been called to that space. You don't know what your ministry will accomplish. And I would just encourage them. I know there's moments when you feel like you want to give up as spiritual practitioners, but maybe I can serve as an inspiration that it doesn't matter. Don't look at the outcome of what you're doing. Do the thing. You don't know why you're being called to do the thing. Maybe the job, the outcome is somebody else's job, and that person has been prepared specifically for that job. The problem is we think you are meant to solve everything in one go, in one sitting, which can't happen because that's why cycles happen, right? We can only do so much, and we pass on to the next and the next and the next. So our job as spiritual practitioners is to midwife this new beginning, this new reality. So let's come out, let's support this initiative, and let's now become the spiritual leaders of the 60s, the ones who were even at the forefront of independence and liberation movements, because it was spiritual leaders, really, if you look at it. But we'll talk about them at another point. So I just want to encourage spiritual practitioners.
They've been encouraged. Let me ask you something before we wind up. The anger part, makasiriko, how are people supposed to deal with that anger? Actually,
what I usually say, there's Mars. Actually, when you look at astrology, and we have Mars is right there. Mars is doing something on the house of work in the 6th house. So Mars is associated with the aggression principle, the anger principle, what drives you to get something done. So if I want to know how you respond to stress, you look at somebody's Mars. So for us, we are quite we want stability, so we tend not to flare up too much. But what I usually say, when you're dealing with a lot of anger, that means you have a lot of excess Mars energy, which is fiery, passionate. It can destroy something, but what you want it to destroy, you want it to destroy something on the external. You don't want to turn it in within, because then you're destroying yourself, you're destroying the society. Usually turn Mars is us against the world, don't us against each other. So you see, in 2008, during post-election violence, it was us against each other. Yes, we were misusing Mars, or using Mars in its shadow. But in 2024, I'm so proud to see that now we are externalizing Mars. We are not going after each other. We are going after the source. And we are calling the problem by its name.
We are not tiptoeing.
We are not tiptoeing.
We are not tiptoeing. We are calling the problem
By its name.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
much. It's been
much.
an honor to host you. Reject. Finance Bill 2024. Reject, please.
It
Stop.
sounds rejected in the ancestral realm.
Yes, it's already rejected. The ancestors already rejected it. Yeah, like jokes aside, guys, reject. This is not even funny anymore. For me, I think I was really disappointed by the MPs who voted yes.
Oh my goodness.
And the ones who tried to disregard what everyone was standing for. I was also very much disappointed by people who decided to speak last minute. I feel like when you feel something, stop sitting on the fence.
Right.
Just stop seeing which side is safe, which side should I be on. Like take a stand. Tuende sisi wote pamoja, but take a stand. But I hope, as you've said, that our leaders are watching and they are reading the room and they are able to see this is not just about the finance bill.
It is not.
This is something that has been escalating. It's deep and it's going to go on and on. And also, again, I'm happy that we have people like you who can be able to constantly remind us about our ancestors. You know, they were saying, I don't know, I was watching something by this South African lady and she was saying, it's really sad as Africans. We have Easter, we will have Ramadan, and all those are public holidays.
Absolutely.
But Africa
Day
our
holidays
will never be a public holiday.
But I like South Africa so much. Oh my goodness, because they have an Ancestors Day.
Imagine.
They have an Ancestors
Can
Day.
you imagine?
It's just something to look up to.
You know?
It's something to look up to. We'll get there.
We'll get there.
We will get there.
We are getting there. We are getting there.
Very encouraged.
Yes. But my people, me as I prepare to go reject the Finance Bill 2024 in action, I really hope that you have learned something from our guest today. I always say it's energy. She came in, like we were just the two of us, super early in the morning. And I just opened the door and I was just looking at her and there was such beautiful energy. And I knew I was in safe hands. And I hope this conversation has also made you know that you're in safe hands. When we listen to our spiritual practitioner, there is nothing. I love that as Africans, we are doing away with this whole stupid, like, sijui witch doctors, these people are demons, these people are, you know, they are even, they should see you rocking.
You know, but the actual look is,
the actual look, you know, is always so beautiful, you know, and I'm happy now when we are able to see such looks, when we are able to see you guys rocking a couple of jewels here and there, we are able now to interpret and we know the meaning of why you're doing what you're doing. So it's not a matter of, oh, these people are demons, which I love that we are doing away.
Absolutely.
The floods really
did
a thing.
The floods have cleared a lot of things,
They've cleared
to be honest.
a lot of things, you know. Yeah, but let's merge on, my people. I know it's not easy, but I keep saying that as Martin Luther King said, I don't know if I'll use the exact words, but I always say, you know, the world will end because of the silence of the good people. So don't be a good person there and be quiet. Let's fight collectively. Let's also understand why we are fighting. It's not just a matter of us using our voice. It's why are we doing what we are doing? Do we understand? And I hope today's conversation has made you understand why so many things are happening. But also you can contact my guest. The social handles are on the screen right now. Connect with her if you have any questions, or if you feel like there's something that we've left out on today's conversation, put it on the comment section, and who knows, we can have her here again so that we are able to, there are so many things that we've not touched on, the ones I relate with from her. You know, it's just that today we were talking, we needed to understand what is happening, you know, but there are so many things she talks about that I also want you guys to experience. But even before we bring them on the show, you guys can visit her profile and you can be able to be updated from there. But as we continue saying, reject Finance Bill 2024, take good care of yourself, guys. Remember the why. When we go and we merge, may we do it peacefully. We are not after chaos. We are not after violence. We are just there because it's time, guys. We don't want it amended. We are rejecting fully. Let's go back to the drawing box and let's do what is right by our people, not what is right by other people out there, what is right by our own people. I'm gonna see you guys tomorrow at 10 a.m. Bye-bye.